Hiya, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
You want to go do a podcast?
Sure.
Jump in.
Ladies and gentlemen, fillies and gentlecolts, dragons of all ages, and everyone else, welcome to Binging Barbie. I'm your host, John, and with me I have my co-host. The magic of friendship doesn't just exist in Equestria, it's everywhere. You can seek it out, or you will forever be alone. Right, Jay?
Sure. I don't know if I know enough about the series yet to weigh in on this particular question.
Sure, yes. Anyway, this week we are here to introduce our brand new series, which, over the past year I've been subtly and not so subtly been hinting at and alluding to. And this series is called Pondering Pony, a My Little Pony podcast. Here, we're
Yeah,
finally here.
the big one.
The
Yeah,
big one.
this is one that I have been curious to do since we started going into non-Barbie related stuff. You've been a little bit more hesitant.
This project has been a long time coming. I mean, we do a lot for Binging Barbie. We plan stuff for a lot in advance. We have spreadsheets of like different series that we do. Our schedule, we like to schedule like a year and a half in advance. And sometimes we have to replace series, so we have spreadsheets of different series that we can do. And from the very beginning, when we were listing out like different toy themes that we could cover, My Little Pony was like one of the first ones, and those it was one that I forbade us to do because I didn't want us to just jump into it unprepared or just skim over it. I wanted to do this series justice, not because one, it means a lot to me, and two, like, I know there's a huge fan base, and I don't want to just ignore. Plus, ponies isn't just a franchise that you just watch a movie and that's it. They have TV shows, lots of TV shows, and so that's not something that we usually cover on the podcast. And so for the past couple years I was trying to figure out how we would do this thing, and so that's what we did. We've actually postponed the release of this series a couple times. Like, we postponed it like a whole year and then a few months. Like, I really wanted to do this series justice, and after like planning stuff out, after like figuring out the structure and the notes, I think we're finally ready. I'm very
Yeah.
I'm very excited, and I'm very nervous sighted, if you will. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you've been tinkering away at the various documents for a while, and I've been staying clear of that. This is part of the idea of this is, I have my own history with My Little Pony, but I'm not as in enmeshed in that world as you are. So a lot of this is
sure,
going to be you introducing me into this. So I've been kind of taking a step back here, and you're putting out you've made all of the notes and all of the stuff that I'm enjoying not having to do all of that work.
yeah,
So I appreciate that, but I am excited and curious. I
yeah,
I guess we'll kind of get into it, but I do feel a little bit like a cultural anthropologist, that I'm just like coming into this thing of like, I know this is something that's very important to John and to a lot of people. So I'm just like, I'm going in and like, oh, I wonder what I'm gonna figure out here.
sure,
What themes the show is gonna bring up, what ideas, if I can like puzzle out in my head. And who knows, maybe I'll end up also genuinely enjoyed the show as a piece of entertainment. But
yeah,
it's hard to approach this, especially for someone like me who has been adjacent to a lot of this for a long time, to approach
yeah,
this with like a level of objectivity.
yeah. But yeah, before we like really talk about the specifics about how we're going to do this because today we're not actually going to be covering any content. Today's just us introducing you to this whole show, um, because of reasons which we will explain later. But before we delve into that, why don't we talk about like what is My Little Pony? It's a toy line, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So My Little Pony was created by Bonnie Zachary in 1981 with the help of Charles Munchinger and Steve DeArguano. Sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't read
I wrote
those
the
names out
notes, so
beforehand. Yep.
yep.
Should have gone through for pronunciation. But yeah, no, the original toy line was called My Pretty Pony, and the toys were made to look like real ponies. But then it was rebranded in 1982, so the next year, with a new colorful style. And yeah, I actually
And
watched the documentary, the Toys Which Made Us documentary about this. So I I know a little bit of this stuff. But yeah, John wrote out all of these notes.
yeah, the My Pretty Pony wasn't as big as a success as Hasbro would have wanted. So the next year, they just rehauled everything. They made the pony shorter, gave it a little bit more caricatured designs, and then added colors. Which by this point, it was no longer Bonnie Zachary's like creation. It just everyone else started to do this own thing. But she
Yeah.
is credited as the original creator who had the original designs. I know there is some dispute about like
Yeah.
sculpting versus original idea, but officially credited by Bonnie Zachary. Um, so yeah, that was the start of Generation One. Continue.
Yeah, and in 1984, the first animated project was released, and subsequent projects would come out in the following years, such as film and two different TV shows. Most of
Yes.
the oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, so the first TV show came out in 1986, which was called My Little Pony and Friends. Um, that was the majority generation one. And then in 1992, there was like another show that fans call it 1.5 because it's not exactly connected, but it's still part of that era. And so that was called My Little Pony Tales, which was a very different show. Um,
Okay.
yeah, continue.
Yeah. For most of the 90s, the brand was pretty quiet, but then Generation Two began in 1997. It only lasted a couple years with no animated media created. But Generation 3, which is the one that I'm most familiar with, started in 2003, targeting a younger audience. They would release straight to DVD animated specials that coincided with toy themes, so a little bit closer to the Barbie movies that are coming out at around this time. This
Yeah.
generation lasted for the rest of the 2000s.
Hmm.
Yeah, in 2010, Generation 4 launched with an animated show created by Lauren Faust. And yeah, this is sort of the big turning point moment for the brand where it brings in this large fan base. Sort of, I don't know how much you wanted to get into the specifics. I just yesterday rewatched the Jenny Nicholson last BronyCon little documentary thing to refresh my memory for some of these things. But yeah, it started out sort of ironically on different websites online of, adult men watching this. Hey, let's watch this pony show, sort of ironically, and then that irony turned, as irony often does, to a more sincere appreciation. They discovered that the show was higher quality than they had been expecting, and that sort of started bringing in more people and more people, and yeah, that created the fandom known as the Bronies.
Yeah, there is a little bit more to it than just that, which is something that I'll save for our next episode
Okay.
as
Yeah.
we talk about some stuff because there's like stuff going on behind the scenes that caused the catalyst of the Brony fandom to uh, be made.
Yeah, yeah, it's complicated, and I know you have done a lot of research, and I've done, I've watched the Jenny Nicholson video. That's my main source of information for this kind of stuff. And I mean,
Yeah.
be around a couple bronies in high school and seeing that side of things. But yeah, the series lasted for 9 seasons, which is kind of wild for a kid's toy media property. Like usually they try and reboot it more often than 9 years. Yeah, it ended in 2019.
Hmm.
And then the most recent fifth generation began in 2021 with a Netflix animated film and TV show, and then ended a bit prematurely last year in 2024. And currently, we are waiting for Generation 6, and there is news of a live action movie coming up soon.
At some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, right now, My Little Pony has had like a huge surge in China, so they're having their time of their life over there.
Okay.
And we're over here just, pawning for the old days of. Yeah. I mean, the state of like pony fandom is like all over the place right now because, you know, the kids have grown up and like everybody has different opinions, new generations have showed up, and it's like, all right, we're all at war with each other for some reason. It's a whole thing. Not here. That's not what we're here to talk about. So yeah, that's a basic history of the brand itself. Um, and yeah, so before we actually talk about our own history with the brand, we do have to talk about something, or specifically someone who, without them, I don't think we would have like done this series. We wouldn't even have it started podcasts in general. So, um, yeah, I don't know how do we get into this.
Yeah, no, we had a friend in high school, a mutual friend of ours, who was a brony and was the person who got you into the show. I know you have a little story behind that.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you want to just give the like very basics of it.
Yeah, so friend, he went by Corel. He was very much obsessed with the fandom. How he got into it is that he watched a Fine Bros, teens react to a My Little Pony thing. The thing fascinated him enough that he watched the show. This is back in 2012, so season 2 of Friendship is Magic had just finished, and this was like a few months before I went and met you guys when I moved to your school. Uh, my gosh, like the guy was so obsessed with My Little Pony. Like every chance he got, he would try to convince us to like watch the show. Which was kind of annoying at times. We'd argue about it a whole lot. Um, and he sadly passed away a few years later, um, a long time ago. And I know that he really loved podcasts. He and I talked a few times about podcasts, and after he passed, I started to create a podcast. That's where podcast name in brackets came in, and then after years of doing that podcast, we started binging Barbie, and now we have come full fruition to doing My Little Pony, which he would have been really excited for. And specifically, I think he would have really been excited for you to get into because he was always like trying to get us into the show. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I wish I had gotten into it sooner, but yeah, this is probably a good time to talk about our history with the franchise, just more personally. Um, Ponies has had like a weirdly significant impact on my life, even though I haven't interacted with it all that much. I think I've talked about this before on the podcast, but my parents had a very egalitarian approach to what toys my sisters and I were allowed to play with. Like, I played with Barbies and Polly Pockets and My Little Pony. I might have even had my own pony, though I don't remember exactly, but I definitely played with My Little Pony. We had one of the movies from the Generation 3, which I have not seen in years. That will be interesting to rewatch. But yeah, then just sort of growing up and being influenced by the culture, and yeah, I sort of internalized a lot of negative things, which led to once the Brony fandom started to emerge, and I became aware of that. It hit at something that was a little bit too close to me, where it's like it's like with theater kids, where you see people who are being cringy. We'll use that word, um,
Yeah,
and being
yeah,
unapologetic in that way. And for me, it made me feel like, well, you aren't allowed to do that. And like at a certain level, I wish I was allowed to do that, but I wasn't allowing myself to express that kind of feeling, or like to appreciate more feminine things. And I mean, that wasn't like a consistent philosophy for me. That was just like what I thought, my initial judgment based on, how it was presented to me and how I had grown up in the culture that we were in. Um, but yeah, so I do feel like I said and held some opinions that I now regret. Um, but over the next few years, as sort of interacting with bronies, and especially once you started watching the show, that sort of opened me up to the idea of like, oh, maybe this isn't like, maybe my judgment about this is incorrect. Maybe there's actually something here that people are genuinely responding to. And yeah, at this point, I am like, okay, well, I don't care if it's feminine or not. I don't think that really matters in who's allowed to like it or dislike it. Um, but yeah, that's sort of been a long journey for me, kind of going full circle from enjoying My Little Pony very unironically to being very weirded out by the brony fandom initially, to now I'm like back to being like, okay, well, this is something I can be okay with, something that I can hopefully enjoy. We'll see. I
yeah,
suspect that I will get at least some enjoyment out of this.
yeah. I mean, there's definitely reasons to be weirded out by the Brony fandom, especially the dark side that we don't ever want to talk about. Um,
Yeah.
but the majority who's just there to watch a cute cartoon with like colorful pastel horses, they're the okay ones. um, Mostly, yeah,
I mean, as long as people aren't hurting real life people, that it's like, okay, well, whatever. But yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah,
we don't have to get into that side of things.
yeah. At least not on camera or on the podcast. Yeah. So my history, I have a whole spiel and story about this. But yeah, I did not grow up with My Little Pony toys. Um, by the time Generation 3 started, my sister was kind of like outside of the age range. And so she didn't play with the toys. She was becoming a teenager, and so she was like more into like the emo uh checkerboard black and white, hot topic
Oh
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Um she was very much into like Powerpuff Girls, and so that was the stuff that I grew up with, which also had like Lauren Faust's involvement. So full circle. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was never taught or told I shouldn't play with like the girl toys because like I had girl cousins, and so I'd play with them. Um, but once you become like a teenager, you go to high school. I moved to America, and so there's just like some stigma and some vibes that like people happens like, oh, girls stuff, like, nah. And so I learned what a brony was at some point in like 2011, 2012. I don't recall the specifics of how I learned it. It was probably something where some kid at school was telling me about it, and I thought, oh yeah, that's pretty weird. I don't want to be anywhere near those freaks. And then I moved and I met our friend Corel, and I was like, oh, this guy, he's a nice guy, but I don't like My Little Pony. That's weird. And he again, he often would like try and get me to watch the show, and I'd often refused, and then like each time I'd like slowly adjust. It's like, no, I'm not gonna watch it unless I have kids or some other excuse. And then to mix the to like cut out like a bunch in the middle ground. It was like the 4th or 5th of November of 2014. I I know this date specifically because like a day or two later we went and saw Hamlet.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, the Globe Theater's traveling show of Hamlet, and at that time I was like watching through some like internet YouTube stuff like llamas with hats or ASDF movie, old school YouTube animated stuff, and I came across like some animated fan work uh called Rainbow Dash Presents, and like what caught my eye was that I could tell that it was from My Little Pony, but like it was a completely different art style, and so I was like, oh, is this like a parody to make fun of it? But no, it was weird. It was something. It was a fan made thing, which I enjoyed, I was fascinated by, and that led me down a huge rabbit hole of watching different fan content. And then that's how I got introduced to like the concept of reaction videos. And so I watched a bunch of Brony reactors, uh, learned everything about like the fandom and like the show before I even started watching the show through like the fan stuff. And then like later that year in like December, November, I started watching the show. uh Constantly like talking to Carell about it's like, hey, I'm watching this, and he'd be excited about that. And so I'd caught up with the show. At that point it was just 4 seasons, and on the 1st of April 2015, on April Fools, like I'd caught up, and then I made a video on YouTube saying like I'm a brony now. And like a few weeks later season 5 started, and so that was fun, and I got to watch it there. And around 2015, early 2016, I decided to start making YouTube videos, and so I um did reaction videos to like fan works, and then I started doing reaction videos to the show in season 6. And so that's what I did for the next few years. I very invested in the show, in the fandom. Like I still make pony content. The past few years I had been doing a reaction series watching through the first 3 generations. You can check that out. Go to like Lego JPL Studios. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That's my YouTube channel. That's where I watch pony content. I made a big video called "Life After My Little Pony," which is kind of like a documentary-ish thing of me talking about my time with the fandom and like what life has been like after the show had ended. Recommended. Wink, wink, nudge,
Yeah,
nudge.
yeah.
And
Go and
so,
watch that. It's a very
yeah,
excellent little view into that period of time.
specifically from my standpoint. Thank you so much. Um, yeah, so with me going through the first 3 generations, I've also been making ranking review stuff. Again, go check that channel out. If you like pony stuff, there's stuff there. I'd recommend what I've done in the past 3 years. Anything older than that, you're watching some cringe, but it's there. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those things that is dearer to you than it is to me, which is part of why I am interested in getting into this, and seeing what you have prepared for me. Yeah,
Yes,
this is something we've talked about for a while, even just outside of the context of the podcast, because you have been trying to get me to watch this show and then tried to get me to not watch the show, and
yeah,
various things throughout the years. So
yeah. I mean, I wasn't as uh very upfront about it as our friend was. I respect people's choice to not do it, so I left you alone about that. But I know I definitely was sneakily planning, just trying to gauge your perspective. It wasn't until after we started binging Barbie, where we went through 40 Barbie films, and you kind of got used to watching kids content. And I was like, okay, has the time come for us to finally get you into My Little Pony? Um, yeah, I I really wanted to do this thing properly. We have done TV shows in the past, um, and those aren't our best episodes because we kind of struggle to come up with stuff, and so part of the reason why kept delaying this thing is I wanted to make sure that we'd have stuff to talk about. And
Yeah.
yes, me being someone who has had like 10 years in investments, I will have stuff to talk about. So yes. um so the plan, what's our plan? Our plan is the cover of My Little Pony, and we currently plan to cover everything, right? Everything.
Yeah, yeah. You have set up. We went through as we were thinking of this. We had multiple different. You actually like built out multiple different potential schedules for how this would
Yes.
all sort out. But we did settle on this sort of interweaving of different things, mainly focusing on the fourth generation, on Friendship is Magic, which is sort of the big totemic thing that we are going to get to. But you also wanted to make sure that we are, since this is a toy movie podcast and we generally like to follow the history of these media properties. You have also interspersed episodes from the earlier shows, and then by the end of this long project we will have covered everything.
Yes. We might take like a break here and there, depending on how we're feeling and if we're burnt out. But yeah, the plan is we're gonna cover everything. Uh, so how that will work logistically is that every week we will talk about 2 episodes of a Generation 4 show. So Friendship is Magic, we'll watch 2 episodes a week. We'll talk about that. And after a couple weeks, we'll take a step back and watch like an episode from Generation 1 or Generation 3. And we'll do that until we finish that. And for those doing the math, if we're just talking about Generation 4, the first four, and you're doing the schedule math there, that's going to take us a good part of like 2-3 years. So we're going to be here for a while,
Yep,
hopefully.
yep.
Hopefully.
Now, for
Um,
people who aren't super excited for ponies or who don't want that to be the only thing we do for the next few years, we are planning on doing a handful of bonus series as we're also covering ponies. That I haven't fully nailed down the schedule for that, but that'll probably be maybe 2 or 3 episodes a month of additional series, just the kind of stuff we've normally been covering. I could say by the end of the year we will be covering the 2 Five Nights at Freddy's movies. Um, so sort of
ooh.
a palate cleanser for the people who aren't as enthusiastic as about My Little Pony, and a way for me to kind of also still get to choose my weird little side projects that I want to force John to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is my series, You like how we started binging Barbie, I what happens a lot is that I joke and I make these weird suggestions and then you take them seriously and bring out schedules. That's why we started watching 40 Barbie movies, and that's also why we did like Beverly Hills Chihuahua and Ice
Yeah.
Age. Not because I wanted us to, be because I loosely mentioned it and then you decided, hey, that sounds like fun, let's do it. And so
I
um
fun or interesting. I think it's more that it sounds interesting. I think it's specifically with Ice Age. That
sure.
was fun. We had fun with those. But yeah, we will be sort of popping back and forth between ponies and yeah, we will be going through ponies, so there will be a ponies episode each week. Um Probably breaks for Christmas and that kind of stuff, but pony episode each week, and then the occasional little bonus episode on stuff and catching up with. We have a new Christopher Nolan movie next year. We'll definitely be covering that as soon as we can when that comes out. Um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. The format, I think the format's going to stay the same. You know, how the format, if you're new to this podcast, goes is that we talk about the episodes or movies through like different talking points. So we talk about like the story, the writing, uh, then we do like the characters, then the like animation, the audio, the voice acting. And typically, what we normally do is that we give them scores, but for this series, I don't think we'll be giving scores for each episode individually.
yeah,
We
yeah,
might do it for individual seasons. We'll get to that point when we get to that point, but as of right now, currently, we don't plan on doing that. We will, however, be giving scores for films. That's not going to change at all. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's a little hard
Again,
to do our normal scoring thing when we're just doing it based off each individual episode. So yeah,
yeah.
we'll just keep the format, but not focus as much on the scores.
Yeah, and again, I made sure to like include things for talking points. I've included like some like Easter eggs and allusions that I copied and pasted from like the Pony Wiki. I have like IMDb trivia, which shall be fun, um, because I often struggle to talk about things if I don't really care about things. So there's a lot of episodes where I'm kind of silently listening to you guys talk with our guests. So here I'm taking charge here,
Yeah,
which should be interesting. I will have things to say. I'll have more things to say than I normally do, so that should be lots of fun.
yeah, yeah. I'm excited to get a chance to be a little less to not have yeah I don't know what I'm trying to say. Excited for the chance for you to be sort of taking the wheel here and I get to be in the passenger seat
Yeah, you
as
get to
you
be the one to
introduce me.
relax, not have to like format the notes. I still might have you like do a couple things here and there, but
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the most part, Pondering Pony is something that I developed. Like, yeah, again, I wanted to take this seriously, and like, I made a proposal. I made a document with the pros and cons, with like explaining the specifics. Like, I essentially had to like pitch the idea to you, um, which is not something we normally do. So again, this is me taking it seriously.
yep, yep,
Yeah. Um, And we're not just doing this podcast. There will be other things going on, mostly by me. Um, I will be doing reactions to the show, Friendship is Magic, alongside this. So again, go to our Patreon at bingingbarbie.patreon.com. You'll find early access to my reactions there. Again, also check out the Lego JPO Studios YouTube channel. Again, there's pony related content there if you're into that stuff. I might also upload podcast related stuff. And we may potentially do live streams to like cover our thoughts at the end of each seasons. Again, just keep an eye out if we decide to do that. Um that should be fun. That's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you have been making My Little Pony stuff for quite a while now, so this is a
Quite a
space that
yeah.
you are familiar with and you have an idea of what is interesting to engage with. Yeah.
Yeah, like 10 years. Oh my gosh, that's a long time. I envy you. I wish I could be you starting into this journey. Man, I miss that first year of just being new to everything and discovering everything. Um, Now everything is just like old hat. It's like, yeah, I know this. This is old news. All right. Well, we are going to be going into Generation 4, which is, began with Friendship is Magic, a whole TV show. And before we get into that, I wanted to like ask you a few questions. Uh just so like the audience can be on the same page with you of like what you know. So first off, some general questions. What do you know about this show?
That's a big question because I feel like I know a lot of information through osmosis, but I don't know a ton about the show itself. Um, I know some of the character names. I know that there are like five protagonists,
Okay,
right?
sure.
there's I know the name Pinkie Pie, I know the name Rainbow Dash, Twilight
Mhm.
Sparkle, Applejack, Fluttershy.
Okay.
There's a dragon, which was in the
Ooh.
2000s movie that I watched, so I know that
Mhm.
much. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if I list out everything I know, it's just going to take a while. But yeah, I know I would say more about the fandom through you and through other friends and through the Jenny Nicholson video and through other things that I've engaged with over the years. So I'm familiar with like BronyCon and some of the memes and Brony music. I haven't listened to it, but I know that's a thing. Um,
Mhm.
the sort of the culture around merch and that kind of stuff. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, I wouldn't say for the show itself. I'm assuming since it's a kids cartoon, it's going to be relatively episodic with sort of a lesson per episode type structure, um, colorful style. I mean, I've seen images of the show, so I know that kind of stuff. So yeah, I
Mhm.
wouldn't say I'm going in entirely blind, but I don't quite know what to expect.
Okay. Well, another thing is what are you looking forward to with this process? Like what if we're like watching the shows, like anything you are looking forward to seeing or that you really want to see?
Um, that is a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer for it. I'm mostly just curious to see what all of the hoopla is about.
Okay. Okay. And then I guess to be the opposite of that, what is something that you're not looking forward to from this experience or from the show?
Yeah. Um, kids media and kids
Mm-hmm.
TV
Mm-hmm.
is not always my favorite. TV in general is something that I kind of struggle to watch. I think having an episodic 20-minute show is a little bit easier, and since we're sort of pacing it out, that's going to help. Um, but yeah, there is, I hope that this is as good as I have been promised, but there is a part of me that worries. Is this just a standard kids show that got popular because of memes?
Hmm.
And I'm assuming that it isn't because I know enough people who really love it. Um, but that is kind of in the back of my mind. And then my another fear is that this has been hyped up so much to me, and I tend to have a bit of a hard time. I'm a bit of a just like automatic contrarian. So if something is hyped up to me, I'm less likely to enjoy it than if I just enter something a little bit without any expectations. Um, I think we've talked about that before as an issue that I have with things. So I'm going to try and keep as open in mind as possible. And I'm approaching this as, again, I said, a cultural anthropologist. I'm like looking at this thing and trying to understand how other people respond to it. And then if I have a personal response to it, then that'll be nice as well. But hopefully that perspective is allows me to get out of my own head a little bit.
Sure. And I guess you kind of already answered this one. It's similar to another one, but what do you want to get out of this? Either it be from watching the show or just more, I guess, like this whole experience of like doing Pondering Pony, like going through the generations and just covering this toy line. What do you want to get out of this?
I want the podcast to become so popular that I can quit my job and just do podcasting. I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't have any expectations or ambitions around that.
I
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know.
we it's been our dream for 3 years now.
This is kind of like to bring up another series that we have pondered and then canceled multiple times. Like similar, and that's Bratz, which is my thing with Bratz is that I want to have seen the Bratz movies, but I don't want to watch the Bratz movies.
Yeah,
I want to get to the part where I have seen it and I'm able to like talk about it intelligently and compare it with other toy media franchises. I don't
yeah.
want to sit down and watch it.
It's
Um,
something that we have to do. This is
yeah,
a because we did Barbie, Bratz was always going to be something we'll have to do because
yeah,
it's their competition. And every time we work on the schedule, I'm like, "Hey Jay, let's do Bratz." You're like, "No."
and
So,
I look at the schedule and I look at the title Bratz Babies with a Z Save Christmas. I'm like, I don't want to spend 60 minutes of my time watching Bratz Babies Save Christmas. Anyway, we will eventually do Bratz, assuming this podcast continues to go. That is on the list of things we will have to cover. But I don't feel that way about Friendship is Magic, but I do feel that way about some of the other ponies stuff.
sure. Yeah. I get what you mean. Um yeah, so I said that I was really excited for this series, but I've also like really been nervous about this because I don't really know what your reaction to this would be. Like I hope it's a good thing, but I have a note here. You've talked about this and I just want to be here to temper your expectations here. Because I know, like again through osmosis, you know that there's hype for this show. I love this show. It's special to me. It was special to our friend. But I want to temper your expectations and don't expect this to be a 10 out of 10 show or even a 7 out of 10 show. It's a good show, but it's not going to be as amazing, depending on who you ask, as like Gravity Falls or other of our favorite shows. It's a kids show that has episodes, and not gonna it's not made to be like Game of Thrones. You're not expected to get like season 1 of Westworld type storytelling or like the same cultural impact of Game of Thrones, although this will um
I mean, I could make the argument that this has had maybe not the show itself, but the culture around the show has had a cultural impact that rivals some of the biggest TV shows out there. But
mhm,
yeah, that's besides the point. I definitely, yeah, and I am more so curious than excited to get into this
mhm,
because I don't know how I'm going to react to it, and I'm trying to, again, I'm keeping an open mind. I have enjoyed, like, I watched the first episode of the recent Monster High TV show and thought it was kind of fun. So like, it is possible for me to enjoy this sort of level of kids entertainment. I'm not expecting Over the Garden Wall or
no,
even Phineas and Ferb, but I am sort of hopeful that it will at least be entertaining and
yeah,
insightful into a culture that I have been on the periphery of and very curious about.
yeah. I know that like what I'm saying is probably going to anger some fans, but yeah, it's a simple show. Part of like the appeal is its simplicity compared to everything else out there.
Yeah,
Um, so keep that in mind. I know you hear from a what you said like an anthropologic standpoint. What?
cultural anthropologist. Yeah,
Yes,
that's my.
but yeah, don't go into this expecting the answers to the universe or understanding why this is like it's just something that happened.
And I should point out, like, John, you are telling this to me more specifically than to a general audience because you know more about how I approach this kind of stuff, and like, you have stopped telling me to watch Andor because you know the more you tell me to watch Andor, the less likely I am to watch it.
Yes.
So this tempering of expectations isn't necessarily a universal thing, just more of as I get into this, you're trying to help me have a little bit of perspective, which I
Yeah,
appreciate.
I want you to enjoy our time here, but I know that if you're going into this expecting it's like, oh, this thing created an entire fandom of like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. Oh, it must be great. I want to get that thought out of your head. Again,
Yes,
it's
yeah,
that's not what this show started out to be. It's not what it set out to be. It's a show for kids that was made by someone is who made classic cartoons. So this is just a classic cartoon essentially. Just enjoy this time. It's not meant to be picked apart or delved too deeply into.
which I will be delving into it from a more thematic perspective. I'm not going to be picking apart episodes to find
Yeah.
whatever little hints are in the background.
Or go like scene by scene, being like, that thing doesn't match that thing. It's like, ah, oh, it's terrible writing. No, just
Yep, yep,
yep. And on this journey, um, I have a couple things, some resources that'll help you out. You know, I've given you like a resource page to like where you will find these episodes.
yes,
Um, Hasbro over the years has been pretty lax in that they have everything on YouTube now, which is
okay,
great. Because back in the heyday, like they did not like that. They were pretty copyright heavy, and now they're pretty lax, which is pretty great. So everything pony related is on YouTube except maybe the most recent one on Netflix.
okay,
So that's great. There's also some external sites that have more stuff. Um, so that's all on a document. But also, I've made for you a cheat sheet, a pony cheat sheet, because there's a lot of ponies here
yes,
outside of our main ones that fans love. So I've made a document of a lot of the ponies, and it's a document that has information about them. And as we go through the series, I will slowly update the information and add new characters to this document. So
okay.
that will be a fun thing to look back on when stuff happens. We'll see if I hold true to this plan of mine, because there's a lot of ponies. um, so yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Again, there's like other stuff, other things that aren't really important. I have given you access to the show Bible that you could take a look at.
yeah,
There's like a document that Hasbro made about bronies when they were expecting them in 2011. Uh, I have like a whole document that's or the Wikipedia allusions things. There's like unused episodes. That's stuff we might talk about someday, but this is not something I'm going to bring up on the podcast, but it's just something for you to get help from. I have
okay.
books. I bought books for me to read. I
I
didn't
feel
need
like I
them.
should. I feel like I should find like borrow from the library to listen to an audiobook of like the history of the Brody fandom. That'll probably be later in the series once we're getting near the end.
I mean, yeah, there's the brony psychologist people who made a book about bronies. Meet the bronies. I have it right over here in my bookshelf. So it is it is a wordy book. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but it was years of surveys.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
That is interesting to me, and I might actually have to sit down and read that one.
Yes. All right. So that's most of everything I wanted to talk about for this introductory episode. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to mention or wanted to talk about.
I don't think so. I
Any like questions for anything?
No, not really. I am excited to dive into this and
Mm,
see what all of the hoopla is about.
don't think about the hoopla.
The hoopla will help me because I'm not thinking of it as like setting my expectations higher. I'm thinking of it as like, again, I'm looking into it and being like, okay, what is it about this show that is, if there is anything? And I mean, the Jenny Nicholson video, she proposes that it's partially just right place, right time. Um, but yeah, I am curious, like, why this show?
Sure.
So I'm gonna be thinking about that as I watch
Yes.
with this sort of like 15 years later perspective.
Part of information from that video has like a unverified bias. Um, but that's a whole other can of worms. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I guess that's all we're gonna have for this today. So with that, thank you everyone for listening, and make sure to follow us on social media. We're Binging Barbie Podcast on Instagram and Tumblr, Binging Barbie on Blue Sky and Serialized, and Binging Barbie, a Barbie movie podcast on Letterboxd. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a 5-star review and go to our Patreon at patreon.com/Binging Barbie Podcast. And again, please check out my own YouTube channel, Lego JPL Studios, where I have lots of pony content. Um, yes, and we will be back next week to talk about the first 2 episodes of Friendship is Magic. And until then, welcome to Pondering Pony.
Bye, Brodies.
Bye, bronies.